of the questions. Drew, you wanted to ask something. Chime in here, Drew.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie and Steven. Big fans.
Thanks,
Congrats,
man.
both of you, for all your just amazing work.
Appreciate it.
If you'll allow me, I'd love to steer the conversation just for a minute towards business.
Yeah, I'll try.
I
I'll do my best.
mean, you both have wonderfully successful careers, but I've found big band to be a, how do we say, a cash negative enterprise for the most part.
I've never heard it said like that.
Yep.
Sorry for laughing.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
So my question: how have you found a way to turn it positive? If not, is it just something you pour money into because you love it? I'd love to know about how you conceptualize that. It's hard. I want to do a big band album, but it's hard for me to like justify, okay, I'm going to put 50 grand, 40 grand that I don't really have into this. You pull the crowdfunding. I'd love to know what both of your processes and thoughts on this, please.
You want to go first?
Oh man, sure. I mean, well, Drew, what's up? Um, when I first, I don't really think that I have a solid answer for this, and I also think that the industry has changed like so drastically over the past 10 years, over the past 50 years, over the past 600 years. We're not in a cathedral anymore. We're in the YouTube cathedral of music presentation. Andy Farber says Drew married a dentist. That's classic Andy.
I married a psychologist, and I thought that would talk me out of being a jazz musician, but it hasn't worked yet.
So, I can say what I would say to your question is that I'll speak about my own experience, which is that I didn't like get into big band leading or financial gain in any way, shape, or form. Like, actually, the way that I started my big band is that someone commissioned me to write a chart on I've Got the World on a String, and then they hated the chart and didn't pay me for it. And I had this chart that I really liked, and I was like, well, screw this. Like, I'm going to record this anyway. And I wrote another chart of my favorite things, and I went into the studio. And, similarly to what Charlie said, like, I didn't, for a 2-hour session, I didn't pay like the like higher than the going rate. I just paid like what my other 20-year-old friends would commit to for a 2-hour session. I was like, you guys want to do this? Like, no pressure. Like, yeah, we want to do it. We want to play. Like, okay, so that's how I started my band. I had 2 recordings, and I just built up from there, and I built up from there. And what I learned is that, like, even if the big band recordings themselves don't make the money from the recording session back, there's a lot of indirect income that comes from that. The niche for arrangers is pretty small. And I'm really fortunate to be able to collaborate with many people who I really admire and respect. And I also am really fortunate to be able to play in the bands of people who I really admire and respect. And at the end of the day, like, the big band idiom is my own personal, like, artistic vehicle, one of them that I find I'm able to express myself through my music with. So that's, and that's led to me becoming a Yamaha performing artist. That's led to me teaching at the New School in New York City. That's led to so many amazing collaborations with people who have hit me up to arrange for their orchestra or for their big band or for their small group, for that matter. And it's also led to me like having my own repertoire of like about 100 original charts of my own, which is like, I mean, we're on the call with like Charlie Rosen, who's got like, I don't know, way whatever. It's not about like, but it's just like, it's amazing to have the ability to write for that instrumentation, and that at the end of the day is why you get into it. So if you're gonna start, my direct response would be, if you're gonna get into it to make money, then you're not gonna be able to pull it off. But if you get into it to like write the music, and you say, oh, here's a live gig, like, you guys want to come check it out, like a 584 band, for example. I forget the club that you guys used to play at, but it's a live gig. Like, people just want to get together and make music, and that's the first step, really, and just like see where it goes. And
I feel like nobody who plays for the most part, 90% of the time, people who are playing in live big bands in New York City, it's not for the money, it's for the everything else that comes around it. I will say, I have learned a lot about the internet this last year and this last few years. And I'm really lucky that a lot of people are liking my band online, which has been able to generate enough YouTube ad revenue and Bandcamp sales, not to make money, but to come somewhat close to breaking even.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man.
I'm really lucky.
Good
I'm
for
really,
you.
that's like insane. I know. I would
It
never.
is
have expected it.
amazing. Yeah, that's so
Great.
cool.
I mean, I'm
Some-
glad you said Bandcamp because I had the same experience with with an old jazz record that I re-released from the 80s, and I sold it on Bandcamp. And it
Bandcamp's amazing. You would think it wouldn't work because of Spotify, but it does. People use it.
Well, I think it also
feels legitimate.
speaks to your artistry, both of you, but in particular, like, you know, my buddy and I are like, how does this guy make the 8 big band work? Like, we'd go broke in, you know, one month trying to do that.
And I will say the startup cost of the 8-bit big band was scary. The startup cost was scary. Took a long time before I'm like beginning to now approach like, okay, it's coming. It's been 3 years, you know. So
Samuel Adler has a great quote in his orchestration book. The first sentence, I believe, is like the symphony orchestra is the most noble creation of mankind. It's noble. It's a noble pursuit. And as much as jazz writers are, you know, hanging and shooting the shit, there is a certain nobility that is evolved in jazz and in large ensemble jazz music. It's a very precious
there's nothing
and
else like it. Yeah.
historical thing, and there's nothing else like it.
Yeah.
And seeing generation after generation of new writers discover it, and it's very inspiring. So I mean, the nobility alone is reason to do it.
Get in there.
Yeah, get in there. Don't
Make it
not
up.
do it.
Yeah.
Who's got a question, Charlie?